Hey everyone, and welcome back to yet another video. I am on a roll today. This is the third one I've filmed and I'm full of beans. This is going really well. If you want to see the other videos in this series, we are talking about bad sex education and busting those bad myths, the misinformation people have been taught, correcting potentially harmful things people were taught in school and in life, and questions that they have. At the minute, we're jumping off some points raised in a Reddit thread, but we're just going to be kind of like covering your questions in the future and going from here and seeing what happens. In the last video, we spoke about why some people feel the need to separate boys and girls for sex education, and if that's really necessary. I don't think it is, but if you want to share your own ideas, go check out that video. It will be linked down below, and there will be a whole playlist on this. We are going to be covering a kind of issue today that was addressed on this same little Reddit comment that we got the theme for the last video from, and that was, well, this person basically said, boys and girls were separated for sex ed. The girls were told that abstinence is the best option because sex is painful. The boys weren't taught that. And that's what we're going to be covering today, because there is so much wrong with this, just so much. Firstly, once again, let's cover why it's important the same information needs to be taught to everyone. Because in this context, sex can be painful for some people, and that's really important to know and understand. Especially people with vaginas often have issues with sex being painful. And it's really important for their future partners to know this too, so they know to be considerate and to try and avoid hurting their partner, and how to avoid this. Secondly, it's important to know that sex should not be painful at all, and it is so irresponsible to teach girls to just expect it to be and just suck it up. And if you don't want it to be painful, avoid sex at all. That's not helping anyone with anything. It's a really harmful and potentially dangerous thing to tell people. Today I'm mostly going to be focused on pain during vaginal sex, because that was kind of the focus of this original misleading post, but it's important to remember that a lot of the principles that I'm talking about in this video can be applied to all kinds of sex. So please remember that I can't cover everything in these short videos, but I'm not intentionally leaving things out to, I guess, like exclude anyone. I'm just trying to cover as much as I can in a short amount of time. If you do have other questions or want me to cover more specific cases, then please just let me know down in the comments, and I'll do my best to do that in a future video. Or if I can't get to it in time, maybe other people will be able to help you out down in the comments. So if you're one of those people who knows stuff, please go help people out who are asking for help. It would be lovely of you, and you're nice people. So firstly, let's talk about why sex might be painful for people with vaginas and how to avoid it. So first up, sometimes during sex, especially if it's your first time, your hymen might be stretched or tear slightly, which can hurt and sometimes bleed a little. All hymens are different, and contrary to most myths, the little piece of skin inside the opening of the vagina doesn't cover the whole vagina. It's not like a blanket that's covering it. It's not like a piece of rubber stretched over it. It's not like a doorway you have to break down. It's just a little bit of skin inside the opening of the vagina. It doesn't break when you have sex. You don't poke a hole in it when you have sex. You can't tell if someone's had sex or not by looking at their hymen. Every person with a hymen will be different. Some are bigger than others, thicker than others, stretchier than others. It's all very different. And some women barely have a hymen at all, so it might not be a problem for you. You might never experience that kind of pain. You might never experience your hymen tearing or stretching or anything like that. You might never bleed during sex, and that's also normal. But sometimes if you do have a slightly kind of, I guess, fuller hymen, then it may tear slightly during sex, which can result in a little soreness or a little bit of bleeding. But this doesn't just happen through sex. It can also happen through using tampons, through bike riding or horse riding, or any other things. I think gymnastics can also cause some people's hymens to tear slightly. There's a lot of different things. If sex hurts for this reason, then the solution is basically just to go really slow, use plenty of lubrication, as we will discuss in a moment, and know that this pain is only temporary. You can ask your partner to stop if you want. That's more than okay, but just know that it won't, or it shouldn't be, a regular thing that happens every time you have sex. It will pass. Another reason sex might be painful is if someone tries to enter your vagina or other orifice with a penis or finger or sex toy without proper lubrication. And this is probably one of the biggest issues. So you may already know that the vagina naturally produces a fluid. And honestly, this is happening most of the time, and it's used to keep your vagina clean, to flush out any bacteria or foreign bodies or anything like that. And it's happening near enough constantly. Mostly it's kind of unnoticeable. Sometimes it'll be a little more noticeable than others. But when you get aroused, your vagina produces a lot more of this fluid, like a noticeable amount. The fluid is mostly water, but it's also made up of, you'll find a few like vaginal cells in there. There'll be some phosphate, some sodium chloride, a few lipids, maybe some antibodies, a little bit of lots of natural things. It's nothing gross, it's nothing dirty, it's just a very normal part of the body in the same way that saliva is, or a little bit of mucus or whatever. Like I say, when you're aroused, your vagina will produce more of this fluid, which allows you to kind of more easily take in objects like penises. So if you're not aroused, if you're not wet enough, sex can be very, very painful, and it can result in the vagina tearing or scratching or soreness. Therefore, you need to make sure that you and your partner really take your time, make sure you're fully in the mood before anyone tries to put anything in there, otherwise it can hurt a lot. It's not just lack of arousal that can kind of stop you producing enough fluid though. Sometimes if you have certain medical conditions, or you're taking certain medication, or you're a little bit older, there might also be cases where you're not producing enough vaginal fluid and you're not getting enough lubrication, in which case you might want to speak to your doctor about this, and or use some kind of other lubrication. There are lots and lots of options out there. There's nothing wrong with using some kind of lube. It's nothing to be embarrassed about, and plenty of people who don't even need to use lubrication as such will use it just because it makes the experience more fun, a little bit easier. There's tons and tons of options out there. It's not just like a one lube fits all. It's depending on what you want and what you need will depend on what you get. Things like what birth control you're using, what kind of sensation you want, if you have any allergies, they're all going to determine what kind of lubrication you use. There are some simple lubes that will just kind of, make things a little easier for something to get in there, and there's others that can give you fun little sensations like warming or cooling or tingling. So depending on what you want, you can find near enough anything. Another reason sex might hurt is if you're just not in the mood, or not in the right headspace perhaps. And this is more than just not being aroused and not producing enough fluid, but if you're anxious or nervous or just not feeling it for whatever reason, you're more likely to tense up your muscles down there. And the more you tense up, the tighter you're going to get, and the more likely sex is going to be if it continues to go ahead. In these cases, the only solution is to stop for a moment and have a proper think about what's going on and have a frank conversation with yourself and your partner. So if you're worried because this is not what you want, or you might be having doubts, there's absolutely no reason you can't say to your partner that you want to stop and either not do it at all or try again another day. That is absolutely fine. You are more than within your rights to do that. Or sometimes you might be worried or anxious about what the sex is going to be like, but you still want to have sex, in which case, again, stop, speak, talk to your partner, try and relax a little. Sometimes you need to kind of like physically just slow your breathing down and consciously relax your muscles down there before you can do anything. Again, talking to your partner and communicating with them is really, really important so that you're both on the same page, you're comfortable, you both know where you're at. I've read a lot of stories of women who were so busy worrying that sex was going to hurt that it ended up hurting even more, because the more they worried about it, the more tense they got, the more they kind of tensed up their muscles, and the more painful it was. Sometimes you need to kind of consciously relax in order to enjoy it a little bit more. Sex should be about enjoying an intimate moment with your partner or another person or people, not something you get yourself anxious and worried about. So don't feel bad about wanting to take your time and get yourself in the right mindset for it. You can be physically aroused but not mentally there, and that's going to kind of make things harder. You need to make sure your body and your mind are on the same page and you want the same things, and talking to your partner and being comfortable with them is really, really important for getting there. You may also find that sex is painful if your partner's too rough or goes too quickly, or if your partner's penis or the toy that you're using is too big. In those cases, it can result in a little bit of tearing, a little bit of soreness, it can hit your cervix, and that can be really painful or uncomfortable. If it's any of those issues, it's really, really important, again, to communicate with your partner. Stop, take a break, and work through the issues together. If it's too rough, ask them to stop and go slower. If it's too quick, ask them to stop and go slower. Ask them to be gentler. Ask them to do something different. change sexual positions, change what toy you're using, use more lubrication, any of these things. But again, communicating is really important. You never, ever, ever need to just sit back and be in pain and take it. That's never what sex is about, and it's never okay for anyone to expect you to do that. I don't care how good it feels for the other person. If you're in pain, you ask them to stop. And you are more than within your rights to do that. It is okay. And if the other person isn't respecting that and doesn't understand that, they don't deserve your time or your body, and you have every right to say no and kick them out. You don't owe them anything, and you definitely don't owe them pain. And this is why communication is, again, so, so, so important. Don't have sex with anyone you're not fully comfortable having frank, open conversations with. You need to be able to say to them, I want this, I don't want this, stop, this hurts, or please do this to me, or so on. This will not only make sex better and more enjoyable for the both of you, but it means there's no risk of them accidentally hurting you because you're too afraid to say something or whatever. Being comfortable enough communicating with another person is the first step in being comfortable enough to have sex with them. And it doesn't matter if this is someone you've known all your life or if this is someone you met in the last hour. You still need to be able to talk to them and communicate with them on that level and feel comfortable enough to say to them, I want this, I don't want this, and so on. There are cases where the partner might not realize that they're hurting you unless you communicate it. And if someone does communicate to you that you're hurting them, even if it's by accident, you need to immediately stop and address it and work through it and make sure you don't hurt them anymore. This is all just a basic part of consent and communicating with your partner and understanding them. Other reasons that sex might be painful are if you have some kind of medical issue. For example, if you have an infection, ovarian cysts, fibroids, or a whole host of other issues. I'll leave some links and stuff down in the description below if you want to find out some more information. But if sex is something that is consistently painful or suddenly becomes painful when it hasn't before, then some kind of medical issue like this may be the cause, and it's really, really important you go and speak to a doctor about it. And that's why it's not okay to teach women that sex is just gonna be painful, you just sit back and take it, because it shouldn't be. Sex should not regularly be painful, and if it is, that says there may be something medically wrong, and if you just ignore that, you could potentially be putting your life and health and fertility at risk, and that's not okay. Painful sex is abnormal. It's not just something you suck up and deal with, because if there is an underlying health condition and you don't get it treated, that could be really, really bad. If it's an issue with your partner and you're not communicating properly, then neither of you is really going to enjoy the sex, and you're not really going to have a good, happy future between you. So communicating is really important. Understanding your body is really important. Taking care of your health is really important. Being considerate to your partner's needs is really, really important. There are also times as well when sex can be painful for the man, and that as a woman is something that you also need to be considerate about and think about and take their feelings into account and really listen to them. So this goes both ways. Communication is the biggest thing. Not being afraid to be open and honest and frank with your partner is a huge thing, and just be okay taking care of yourself. Sex should be enjoyable for every party involved, not just one particular person. So it's really important that you remember that, and you remember to put your own needs and your own comfort and your own safety first. And with that in mind, I think that's where we're going to end this today, but thank you for watching. If you want to share your own experiences or thoughts or comments or questions, please do so down in the comments. I'll try and get to them when I can. Otherwise, if you want to help answer other people's questions, that would be great as well. But for now, thank you so much for watching today. Thank you for giving me your time. I appreciate you a hell of a lot. Don't forget, if you're new here, to subscribe, and there will be more videos in this series. There will be more videos where I review books and talk about science and history and all kinds of fun stuff like that. We focus on lots of social issues like feminism and pro-LGBT stuff and just cool stuff in general. You can also follow me over on Instagram, and I stream fairly-ish regularly now on Twitch as well, so you can join me over there. But for now, thank you for watching. I've got a lot of editing to go and do, and yeah, I'll see you all again soon. Thanks a lot. Have a wonderful rest of your day.